All right, so our last speaker before our refreshment break is Saebom Jung. So Saebom majored in environmental studies at the University of Michigan, and through her work experience as an intern at the Convention on Biological Diversity and then the World Meteorological Organization, she began to take an interest in marine biological diversity, as well as international conventions related to the ocean. At Scripps, Saebom had a special interest on the phenomenon known as ocean acidification. She's currently working on an outreach project that makes web-based ocean education materials available to schools in South Korea. Saebom also has a knack for law, actually. In my ocean law and policy class, Saebom crushed it. She was a total rock star, and I had her as a secret Santa. So I actually ended up buying her, I gave her my copy actually, but it was Notorious RBG, because I thought she would be inspired by the story of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I don't know if you ever read it, Saebom, but Saebom's story is particularly inspiring. She actually started it last year and had a young baby, who I got to meet yesterday. He's no longer a young baby, Andrew. And she ended up going part-time so that she could spend time with her family. She came back as a part-time student this year after the summer, even though for a big part of it, her family was actually back in South Korea. So it's really inspiring to see Saebom come here and put her mind to finishing this degree and getting her credential and finishing this project. And we're just really lucky that she was able to join our cohort as a part-time student. So welcome, Saebom Jung.
Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Saebom Jung, and the title of my capstone project is Bridging the Gap Using Web-Based Resources to Educate South Korean Middle School Students about Ocean Acidification. My capstone project is mainly focused on ocean acidification and its education in South Korea. South Korea is not only one of the big CO2 emitting countries in the world, but also it has many coastal regions that are affected by ocean acidification. However, Korea is lagging behind other countries in ocean acidification research as well as education efforts. In order to bridge the gap in education and research of ocean acidification between Korea and other advanced countries in the world, I decided to create a website and provide web-based resources of ocean acidification to Korean students and teachers. To begin with, I will briefly explain about ocean acidification. So as the amount of anthropogenic CO2 emitted in the atmosphere increases, the amount of atmospheric CO2 that goes into the water or surface of the ocean also increased. So as CO2 enters into the ocean, it reacts with water and forms bicarbonate and hydrogen ions. So acidity of a solution is decided by the balance between the concentration of hydrogen ions and hydroxide ions. So if the concentration of hydrogen ion is lower than the hydroxide ions, then we call it like basic. And if the concentration of hydrogen ion is higher than the concentration of hydroxide ion, we call it like acidic. So therefore, increasing hydrogen ions in the ocean lowers the pH of the ocean, and that makes the ocean more acidic. And many studies found that there are many different marine organisms that can be negatively affected by ocean acidification, especially calcifying organisms such as coral reefs and sea urchins. Those negative impacts can also lead to detrimental effects on its marine ecosystems, as well as significant financial loss due to decrease in their production. Also, many of you are already familiar with this graph already, but since the 1950s, the concentration of atmospheric CO2 has been increasing, and the annual growth rate of CO2 concentration has also increased significantly. And according to the IPCC report in 2013, about 50% of anthropogenic CO2 emitted remain in the air, and 30% of them is being absorbed in the ocean. Since the Industrial Revolution, pH of the of the ocean decreased by 0.1, and the report also predicted that by 2100, the pH of ocean will decrease by 0.4. So pH of 0.1 might not sound very much to many of you. However, because the pH scale is logarithmic, a change of 1 pH unit corresponds to a 10-fold change in hydrogen ion concentration. So therefore, change in global average pH of surface ocean by 0.1, that actually corresponds to approximately 30% increase in hydrogen ion concentration in the ocean. Therefore, when it's predicted that pH of ocean will drop by 0.4, that actually means a significant change in concentration of hydrogen ions in our ocean. For those of you who are not familiar with South Korea, I want to show it on the map. So South Korea is an East Asian nation, and it's on the southern half of the Korean peninsula. And as you can see here, it's located between China and Japan. And another local study also found that annual mean growth rate of atmospheric CO2 near the coast of Korea is higher than the world average. So according to that report from Energy Information Administration in 2011, Korea was the 8th largest CO2 emitting countries in the world, and almost about one third of the total CO2 emissions in that year came from China, Japan, and Korea combined. Therefore, it shows that Korea is one of the largest CO2 emitting countries, and it actually faces higher growth rate of atmospheric CO2 concentration in its near coast due to its own increasing CO2 emission level, as well as affected by emissions from other neighboring countries like China. And Korea also has a few coastal areas, so-called OA hotspots. In some areas, especially in the west coast of South Korea, pH of the water significantly fall during summer, and in many upwelling regions in east coast of Korea also shows very low level of pH. Especially in Jinhae Bay, which is a semi-closed bay in southern part of the Korean Ocean, also shows low pH during summer, as low as pH of 7.2. Moreover, there are some of the coastal regions that are intact with sources of land-based pollutions, including soil erosion, stormwater runoff, and point source pollutions, and those regions also show low level of pH. So this shows that Korea does have some of the area showing the low pH level, and it also has relatively high atmospheric CO2 level in their near coast area. And even though there are various causes of lowering pH in our ocean, I strongly believe that Korean governments need to give more focus on or have better understanding on the change in seawater pH that caused by oceanic uptake of anthropogenic emissions of CO2 in the atmosphere. In Korea, there has been quite many OA research have been done by major research institutions and universities in South Korea. And according to a report from KIOST, Korean Institute of Ocean Science and Technology, in last 10 years, there has been 40 national research projects that were related to climate change or ocean acidification among the marine sector. Have been completed, and among them, like 21 tasks were associated with ocean acidification. However, most of them were focused on ocean acidification impact on single species, and since there are no standardized observational or experimental methods, observations of OA impact of all coastal areas of South Korea has not been very successful. Therefore, I believed governmental efforts to understand the effect and health assessment of marine ecosystem as a whole is essential, as well as the Korean government needs to have more responsibility on OA education and provide the most accurate and up-to-date information to their public to increase their awareness on ocean acidification. Fortunately, Korea does have some of or many institutions that provide environmental information of both land-based and sea-based. Among them, I found some of major institutions, including KIOST and COEM, where periodically develop training programs and provide news on environmental issues in South Korea. However, it was very hard to find many institutions that provide information about ocean acidification, and it was even harder to find any educational resources that are available to Korean teachers about ocean acidification. Therefore, as a part of my Capstone project, I decided to create a website where I can raise people's awareness of ocean acidification by providing the most accurate and up-to-date information. In order to convey this topic to general public who has no solid science background, I used various methods such as summaries, cartoons, videos, lesson plans, and publications by translating them in Korean. And I also set my target audience to be middle school students and their teachers. And the reason is that in Korea, the concept of acid and base is first introduced to middle school students' curriculum. And I personally thought that without understanding the concept of acid and base, it can be too hard to understand the concept of ocean acidification. But I'm not limiting my audience to middle school students or their teachers only. But as I targeted middle school students, the language and the methods that I used in my website will be also available to larger audiences beyond the age of middle school students. To give you a grasp of my website, I would like to show it briefly here. So this is the front page of my website. And the website has explanation of science behind ocean acidification by using simple language, equations, and cartoons. And there are 2 ocean acidification videos, which I translated and put the subtitles in Korean. The website also has some of lesson plans, including experiments, demonstrations, games, and case studies. Original lesson plans were found from various sources, including NOAA Ocean Acidification Program, as well as Carbo School's library, where they provide resources for teachers and people involved in climate change projects at schools. And yeah, as you can see here, those informations have been translated in Korean, and I uploaded them in my website. Okay. So after creating this website, the most important part left was outreaching. So in order to efficiently introduce this website to as many people as possible, I contacted some of OA researchers in South Korea and asked them to use my website and share it to their students and colleagues. I also used my personal network at Scripps Institute of Oceanography, as well as University of Michigan, where I did my undergrad, and I shared my website as well as my current project. I also contacted the Korean Environmental Education Association and Educational Development Team at the Marine Environmental Research and Training Institution at COEM. And this was to propose my website to propose the importance of OA education in South Korea, as well as to introduce my website. And especially with COEM, one of the institutions that I contacted, they introduced me their training program, which is called Marine Environment Moving Classroom, which they deliver their lessons about marine issues, mostly related to Korea, by visiting different elementary schools in different locations in South Korea by using their mobile classroom vehicles. So this is the picture of their mobile classroom vehicle, and inside there are various digital educational contents, and most of the topics they are focusing on are tideland, marine debris, red tides, and oil spill controls. But as I introduced my topic of ocean acidification and my website and the importance of OA education, they were interested in the topic of teaching ocean acidification to their children, especially because they found the topic can provide various eye-catching demonstrations and experiments that can catch people's, or especially young people's, attention very well. And it was a good opportunity for me to introduce my website and my project to current environmental education developers. And I expect further progression on developing lessons on ocean acidification as a part of their moving classroom program in the near future. I will continue my effort to outreach people as well as to improve content of my website. And ultimately, I want my website to be used as a way to bridge the gap in education and research of ocean acidification between Korea and other countries in the world. And lastly, thank you all for your help and support. And yeah, special thanks to my family, 3-year-old boy, Andrew. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Say. That was great. I have not had that much experience translating. I barely know German. That's my one language. But ocean acidification has a lot of very specific terminology, and I'm wondering if you could sort of explain what the most challenging phrases or ideas you had to tackle when you were trying to translate into Korean.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for the question. And while I was translating the terms, actually those scientific terms or terminologies were relatively easy to translate because we do have the same science concept in Korean. However, the term ocean acidification wasn't very approachable or not frequently used in Korean. So I had to be very careful with using the term ocean acidification because not all the phenomenon of lowering pH can be referred to OA or something like that. So yeah, that was some of the challenges. And by translating videos and materials, actually I had fun translating them. I was just pretend that I'm the person who is learning from that material, and I just imagine myself as a Korean student. And it was a fun and challenging but fun process to translate them.
Yes, I found that your presentation very interesting. So congratulations. I'm curious, when you take these programs that you've translated that maybe have come up through NOAA or wherever, and take them back to Korea to be utilized, my impression is the Korean education system is very formal and rigid. Have you had, what challenges have you had getting those accepted into the to be taught by the Korean teaching establishment?
Okay, so initially I thought the most efficient way to bring this topic to students will be make this as a standard curriculum in Korea, like science curriculum in Korea. However, that was really hard, and that was really something I can knock the door, but it was just sealed and I don't know what's going on in there. So we just get something set and made by those people there. So, but fortunately there were other NGOs and other institutions where they tried to convey these marine issues to Korean students. So even though it was challenging and hard to deliver my projects to governmental level or those education department in Korea, but I was fortunate to meet some of NGO people or some of non-government institutions who are trying to convey these kind of marine issues to their students. So yeah.